Okay, so I wanted to kind of go over some of the issues you were having with your files. You can see this is your folder, DMA 145, and your last name. Now, here's the question I have for you. I'm not sure if you knew, but you had two Project One CSSs. So you can see there's one right here and there's one right here. If I open up both of these, this is the one that's right next to the file. This one doesn't have your sidebar in it. If you open up this one, it does have your sidebar in it. So what I think was happening was that you were working on a duplicate, and when you have duplicate files, it becomes really problematic. It's very difficult to figure out what is going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and I'm going to put it inside, and I'm going to replace the one that's there. You could also do this by deleting the one that's inside next to the index.html. And moving your Project 1 CSS in there. So this is the one that is more recent and the one that you were working on most recently. So I'm going to bring that up in Dreamweaver. And I'm going to bring up your index.html. Oh, and then there's another one. There's something called Victoria Project CSS. So that also, I can't even tell what that is. I didn't know there was that. Yeah, so I would just get rid of that one altogether. I think that one's an older one because it has all the stuff that this one has. So I would just get rid of the Victoria Project CSS, and I would get rid of the thing that says index files because you don't need it. So you really only want to have the files that you need. So I'm getting rid of that file on my computer. And now I just have the index and the Project 1 CSS. So it will actually read from the one that is most recent. Okay, so there's a couple issues. One of the biggest issues is still you have this table thing, which we had talked about, I think, before. You got to get rid of the table. And you should get rid of the style in this. You don't need the style part of your document because you are able to actually, oh, I get it, to actually successfully theoretically attach your CSS. So I'm going to get rid of all this table and this style stuff. You don't need it, so we're going to get rid of that. Now, when you try to attach your CSS, you did a good job in a couple of respects. You got all of the stuff that you need, right? So we have our link, we have our rel, we have our type, text-css, but what you also have is you have a link to that old Victoria project CSS. That's not the file you're using. So you need to make sure this href is pointing at the one that you want to use. So what we wanted to use was the one that's just called project1.css and is in the same folder, so I don't actually even need anything longer than project1.css. As long as it's in the same folder, you can just have the name of the file. So now we have the name of the file, and there's the name of my file. And hopefully they're connected now. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to go and look in my project1.css. So over here, I can see something right off the bat that's a problem. If you look, this sidebar is your selector, and so is body. But body is the wrong color. It's not pink. And if you can see, the reason it's not pink is because you're missing one of your end curly braces. So if I put that end curly brace in, you can see now I have a sidebar and I have a body. So both of those should now render. And because I fixed that linking problem over here, my index right up here, they should go together now. So let's see. Let's save that. Let's go back to our index and let's preview it in Firefox. Okay, so there is the page, which is great. And the sidebar doesn't seem like it's working. So let's go back and let's figure out why. Okay, so if we come in here, I think the reason the sidebar is not working is because it's not actually in the file. So you need to decide which part of your file you want to have be a sidebar. So let's say it's this part. So over here in the headline. To make it actually render the way that you want your sidebar to render, so you've already selected it. You selected it correctly in your Project 1 CSS, but you haven't actually made a sidebar in your HTML. So essentially what's going on is over here in your CSS, you're selecting this thing called sidebar, but it doesn't exist. You haven't actually made it. So you need to make sure you make it first in your HTML and then you select it in your CSS. So to make it, I would type in div id equals sidebar, right? And so it's open caret div id equals quotes sidebar quotes and then a closing caret. And then you need a closing tag for this. So you need to make sure you go down, somewhere down here. I'm going to do it right before your main section. And I'm going to do slash, it's actually slash div. Okay, so what that's going to do is up here, you have your div ID equals sidebar. Down here, you have your closing div tag. Okay, now I want you to preview it. Okay, so now it works. So now that we've put it into our HTML, it works. And you can see it's 100 pixels, and this is the background color. So you can make other boxes. I just made this one that's called sidebar. You put the div ID equals, and then with some name, custom name like sidebar, before the content that you want to be in the box, and then you want the slash div to be after, so the closing div tag to be after the content that you want in the box. And if you look at my box, right, see, it closes right here before your main content. Okay, I want you to look over, go make sure you go and look over the second demonstration this week that had a lot about positioning and making sure you're doing those divs correctly. You can resubmit this if you would like, it's up to you. Let me know what you decide to do. But these couple changes should make a big difference in your file. We can also meet next week if you have questions or issues.